Mr. Sola, first of all, may I apologize? I've not seen your movie. I hope to see it here in the next few days, and we're going to see some clips here. For my benefit, is this a police movie or is this a gang movie, or what is this film?
It's a movie about the enormous problem of street gangs in the American cities as seen through the eyes of two police who are in the gang unit of the Los Angeles Police Department. It's called the CRASH Division, which stands for Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. And they're the anti-gang division of the LAPD. So it's through their eyes that we see this film.
You got a lot of cooperation from the Los Angeles Police Department. Some of them have seen the film. Do they like that? Does the department like the film, or obviously it was under their auspices?
Let's put it. I wouldn't say it was under their auspices, but I will say this: that we worked very closely and had a technical advisor from the LAPD Crash Division and the LA County Sheriff's Department Gang Division, which is called OSS, Operation Safe Streets. And we had a probation officer as a third technical advisor and a liaison with gangs and gang members, etc. So we researched it thoroughly. So when we showed the film about 10 days ago to about 150 officers from the Sheriff's Gang Division and the Police Gang Division, they thought the film was terrific because it's the first time that they've ever seen a real film about gangs. And they thought it was, and they brought their wives and girlfriends and whatever. So the reaction was tremendous.
It's reality.
It's a real movie. I mean, the point is that the difference from this film, from previous films which have dealt with gangs, is that the gangs have been the heroes. And this is not a gang film. It's a film about gangs. It's about the war against street gangs. It's not about gang warfare.
Now, you happen to have on your desk there the current Newsweek magazine. It's almost prophetic, I suppose. Which came first? What were you thinking about? You must have been thinking about this project a year or 2 years ago.
Well, how about 4? I started on this project 4 years ago, and initially it was going to be set in Chicago because I produced Bad Boys, also with Sean Penn, which was dealt with juvenile incarceration, teen crime, and so forth. And I became interested in where were those kids before they got inside the prison. With the result that I sent a writer about a year later, and I said, listen, go back to Chicago and see if there's such a thing as a gang division of the Chicago Police Department. I had no idea whether there was such a unit. And he went back and spent a week there, did a lot of research, got a lot of articles in the Chicago Tribune written about gangs and so forth and so on. And I knew there were many gangs in Chicago because I had the list of gangs when I was doing Bad Boys. And there was a very long list of really deadly Chicago gangs. So I knew it was a problem. And we found out from the Chicago Police Department that it was a problem that they were only could contain. They were trying to contain it. They didn't have an answer and they didn't have a solution. And it was jumping out of Chicago. It was jumping into suburbs and it was moving out, and drugs, et cetera, were becoming prominent. So that's how long ago I started on this project. Subsequently, another script was written for Los Angeles, and that was started 18 months ago. So, and we started shooting the film a year ago, February. So it's just unfortunate, for my case, that the release of the film has coincided with this explosion in awareness, suddenly, about the gang problem in America, because that's what the film is supposed to do. And that's what the film was meant to do.
The controversy now, do you see that as this film now is cutting a little too close to home? This is a little too much reality. This isn't what we expected. Tell me your thoughts on the controversy now.
Well, a lot of people who are making controversial statements, most of them haven't seen the film. So I don't know how they can make any valid judgments about the film. The film is a very harsh portrait. It's a very realistic portrait of street gangs in American cities, and it's a portrait not just of the gangs and their violent ways and drugs, but it also lets us understand the conditions in which they live, about social workers and their work with the gangs, about gang workers, about police efforts to get community cooperation to fight the street gangs in the very neighborhoods where the gangs are prevalent. Most of the people who get hurt the most are the people that live in the very neighborhoods where the gangs are running rampant. They're the ones that get killed the most. They're the ones that get robbed the most. They're the ones where the innocent people are shot the most. And that's shown in this film. It's a very real film. I mean, America's been sleeping on this issue until about 5 weeks ago when an innocent woman was killed in Westwood, an upper middle class part of Los Angeles, by a street gang member, and suddenly we had a gang problem. Where were they when I was making the film a year ago, or 2 or 3 or 4 when I started work on it? The police knew there were a problem. The people in the neighborhoods knew there was a problem, but the Los Angeles Times didn't know it was a problem. The Herald Examiner didn't put it on its front page, and it rarely made its way onto television.
That's a sad commentary, indeed. What do you say, though, to people, your critics, who say, this movie makes celebrities out of gangsters or out of gang
Well,
members?
I think once people see the film, they'll know that the film does not make celebrities out of gangsters, because it paints a very, to quote the city attorney yesterday, it paints a very dismal portrait, the dead end of gang life. So I don't think there's anything to emulate.
What's the reaction to, though, one with, and you hired gang members to be in this film?
Well,
they're going to be on the big silver screen there.
There were 6 extras who were brought in by a probation officer. That's all. And he brought them in for a number of reasons. One, he wanted to give them a chance to earn some money which was not earned by selling drugs. 2, to put them in the same area and with officers, with police officers, not in a confrontational situation, because we had a lot of cops around. It was the first time they ever dealt with cops where they weren't running or being jacked up or being arrested. And it was so they could talk to each other as human beings. And thirdly, he wanted to show them that people do work. They do a job of work. They get to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they work until 6 o'clock or 6:30 or 7 o'clock, however long it takes, to finish the work. An example of completion of labor. Right? Those were the 3 reasons that he brought them in. Right? There were only 6 or 7 of them, and I hope it did them some good. That's it.
Are gang members who see this movie, what do you think? What message are they going to get?
Look, first of all, the movie is a reflection of their lives, so it's not going to show them anything that they don't already know. Second of all, they know all the messages. They're very hip. I mean, they've heard social workers, and they've heard gang workers, and they've heard the police, and they've heard their mothers, and they've heard the ministers, and they've heard all those people in their area.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
CNN going by.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
They've heard everything there is to hear about about their lifestyle and about what they do, and they're going to go about doing what they do anyway. And one film, one television show, etc., is not going to change the way they operate. We've got a very serious situation in this country. We've got a massive underemployed population in this country, and it's getting worse and worse. And I would venture to say that the explosion in the number of gang members in the big cities in this country goes hand in hand with the number of homeless in America. I think since the safety net has been cut back or removed by the Reagan administration, it correlates with this enormous growth in street gangs and homeless. And if you can't get a job, then you sell drugs. You've got to do something to make money if you have no education and you haven't got a decent place to live, and other people do. And why don't I get mine? I'm not defending them at all, but that's what's happening. That's really how it is.
Aside from painting a contemporary picture of America, though, and aside from the gang members who see this movie, what are you trying to tell America? Do you have a message for America?
Well, no, there's no message. I mean, it's not, in other words, I didn't want to make a picture which is a message picture. I didn't want to say at the end, you know, and the message from this picture is that you should do X, Y, or Z to fix this, right? It's not a message picture. It is a portrait. It is letting the public know, which had blinkers on, this is what is going on in our cities. What are we going to do about it? We must do something about it. When we made this film, there were 250 gang cops in Los Angeles. That's all. 70,000 gang members. Were we giving them money to put more cops down in Watts? or in East Los Angeles? What were we doing? Are we doing anything to go back to Operation Head Start and feed children of unwed mothers with 3 and 4 children? What are we doing? This is, so I'm not the film doesn't make these speeches. I mean, you can fill in the blanks once you've seen the film.
Yeah.
That's what the film's for.
I have one last question, which we've already asked, and that is this kind of controversy, being on the headlines 3 weeks before your release of the movie, being on Time magazine covers, good or bad for your movie?
I don't know. I really don't know. As I said at the beginning, when all of this controversy blew up, I was extremely upset. I'm extremely upset now. It's not the kind of publicity I like. It's not the kind of publicity I need. I didn't want this kind of publicity for this picture because the film has a very serious intent. And it was made seriously, it was thought seriously, it was acted and directed seriously. This is not an exploitation film. So to get these kind of bizarre, wild charges, etc., about a film that none of these people have seen, I find extremely disturbing, and it's nothing that I had hoped would happen.
Very good. Thank you. Can we just get a 2-shot or over the shoulder? Or?
So we get 15 seconds?
Well, you know how that competition is, you know?
Sure.
I always say the same. My standard answer to everybody is, we'll talk to you for 20 minutes, we'll use 20 seconds, we'll take you out of context, and we'll make you sound stupid. Exactly.
Well, and I tell you, in this instance, I mean, since the film has been taken out of context, in effect, you know, I will...
Where we're going, because now the police department, it's like they want to take it all back. Oh, geez, you know, we've now opened a big can of worms, and you know, we're not film critics. We're not in the business of telling people to go to a movie or not go to a movie, but in essence, those are the messages we kind of sent out, and we're really kind of, unofficially, we're really kind of sorry about that. So,
well, there were phone calls to exhibitors, to certain theater managers, not to play the picture. Not be a good idea if you didn't play the picture in your theater. I mean, really.
Keep talking.
You wouldn't want to tell me who.
I don't know who. I heard about it when I was in New York yesterday through the distribution company. The guy, the head of distribution, said he got some calls from his people out here that they had been advised him that a couple of theater owners had been called and told by the police, it'd be good if you pulled the picture out of your theater that you got it booked in.
You know, right. Mr. Bad Boy is now Mr. Straight Boy, and
right. And instead, I've got this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this. If you'd planned the anticipated stories about this movie, well, you wouldn't have counted. You probably would not have counted on it in a Newsweek magazine.
Well, I mean, they had done an article about 8-9 months ago, inside article about gangs. They've been following the gang problem with some seriousness for quite some time. Newsweek, much more than Time, and. Of course, there's also a George Will editorial. Did you see that?
No, I haven't read it. No.
Well, that's about about gangs too. So
yeah. In a sense, I mean, who knows how it's going to cut? But it's like Made in Heaven. You know, it could be Made in Heaven, but who knows?
I don't know. That wasn't the know. It's not what I wanted.
Sure.
It wasn't my desire. I don't need notoriety and. Newsworthiness, yes. Notoriety, no.
Yeah. Now, was this after Sean Penn had already done Time?
What he went in the Slammer right after we finished, and I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was on this film that he got into that beef with the extra, and who spat in his face. That's going to come out too.
Nearly 400 people died in teenage street gang violence, and just last weekend, a dozen people were wounded and one was killed in gang shootings in L.A. Afraid the violence won't stop, some police officials are critical of Hollywood. They've singled out Colors. It's a brand new cops and gangs movie starring Robert Duvall and Sean Penn, saying it could lead more kids into trouble. Joining us to talk about all of this, a former LA gang member who we will call Mike. A former Chicago gang member, now a college student, John Vergis?
Vergis, right.
Very good. And a caseworker with the Chicago Intervention Network, Donna Weems. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I saw Colors last week, and what little I know about the world of gangs, I get a sense that once kids are in, you can't get out. Is that really true?
No, it's not necessarily true. It all depends on the individual. If the individual has the encouragement and some help with other people, I'm sure that there's ways to get out and other things to do besides being in gangs.
But Mike, for the vast majority of kids, isn't it true that they feel like once they're in, they can't get out?
True. because it seems like they're trapped. It's like they want a way out, but then they can't because they're not getting no inspiration from anybody. Because their mothers can be on drugs, people in their house doing bad, so the kids can rely on a gang.
Why'd you guys join gangs?
Basically, be a part of the crowd. You know, you want to feel accepted by the people in your neighborhood, and sometimes for some people that can be the only way to be accepted.
Mike's been out for a couple of weeks now. John, you've been out for about 2 years.
Yes, that's true.
Donna, what is the one point at which a kid can say, there's another way to do this?
I think you really have to start pretty early on, because what's happening is that there are a number of influences that greatly affect young people. For instance, the movie you just mentioned, it's going to, I think, have a really heavy impact on impressionable youngsters. I think that it's really incumbent upon us to really try to illustrate and provide some alternatives and do it repeatedly. I don't think there's any one point, because it's a continuing process.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what kinds of things were you involved in? Just because you hear about gangs, mm-hmm. and you may get some sensational headlines, but is it as bad as everybody says? I mean, did you carry weapons? Did you deal drugs? Were those the kinds of things the gang was involved in?
Yes, that's the kind of thing the gang's still involved in. But from the movie Colors, the whole movie is wrong. Mm-hmm. You know, it's Bloods against the Crips, but we not having war with Hispanics though. Like in the movie Colors, it don't go like that.
Yeah, because the gangs were kind of integrated gangs. So are you saying it's more racially based fighting?
True, like it's Hispanics against Hispanics, blacks against blacks. Mm-hmm. But the movie don't make it look like that.
Oh, okay, all right. What kinds of things were you involved in? What kind of trouble were you getting into?
When I was very young, I was distributing some illegal substances, which I wouldn't want to say, but that and getting to really some bad fights sometimes, actual gang shootings and things like that, really bad stuff.
How tough is it for you to get kids to trust you, to believe that you've got a real message?
I think the sincerity shows through. Young people are constantly being preached at and talked at, and they can tell a phony in a moment. I agree with Mike that the movie was pretty erroneous and really dangerous because of the kind of message or mixed messages that it was delivering. And not to mention it, I think it just may well inspire some young people to do some things that maybe they hadn't quite thought about doing. But if you are sincere and are consistent with your message, and you're actually out there interacting with the young people, I think they can feel the sincerity.
You've been out for 2 years, you're going to college, you're studying engineering. Mm-hmm. How hard is it to do that in light of what your past has been like?
Well, I try to look forward instead of looking back, and if you look forward to going to college and being an engineer, it's not really as hard as it may seem. The hard part is behind me, you know, getting out of it. Now I'm on my way up forward to do better things.
Yeah. Mike, you've only been out for a couple of weeks. Is it hard staying on the outside of the gang world?
Nope.
You're hopeful that you're going to be
Can I make another comment on Colors?
Sure, go ahead. Everybody's going to be commenting about it.
Well, I feel that the movie is dealing with the expense of our lives, because after Colors, it's going to be more deaths in the streets of L.A.
All right. Mike and John and Donna, thank you all for joining us this morning, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What channel is
before they happen, the Young Laws Party, Black People Party. Young Laws Party, along with the piano and college supply and all this. I'm not too interested in that shit. I don't know.